Hi everyone and welcome to Jab and Move with your host Stephen, and today we're going to be reflecting on the huge fight from Saturday night and the massive encounter between Fabio Wardley and Daniel Dubois, where Daniel Dubois has regained his World Heavyweight Championship status by winning the WBO bout from Fabio Wardley. What a fight it was, and what did we see on Saturday night? Let's digest that, let's go through it, guys. I also want to get your thoughts on what you think happened in terms of should it have been called earlier. What do you reckon to the quick claims, obviously going against all the haters now that the Dubois camp has come out with, and also which individual route should each fighter take? So let's dive into it, guys. In terms of the fight itself, it was what I expected. I think I kind of called it sort of like the Rocky heavyweight bout that we're going to see this year, and that is exactly what we got. And also on top of that, I suspected it would be fight of the year, and it's going to be extremely hard to beat what we have seen on Saturday night. Both fighters had an awful lot of heart. One showed more skill than the other, but both had the ability to get that knockout and actually show their pure punch power in that fight. Obviously, we start from the beginning. Within the first 15 seconds, Daniel Dubois is out on his arse from Fabio Wardley. But I actually think that may have done Fabio Wardley more harm than good, because obviously what we got from it was a Daniel Dubois sort of discombobulated, and he was a bit all over the shop for the next sort of round and two. He fought well in round two, but round three was another one we'll go into. But it gave, I think, Fabio a bit of a false sense of security and a bit of a false sense of ability almost in that fight, that he could go on and just continue with that right hand and just take him with that right hand. He wouldn't need to do any warm-up, no combinations, no different sort of boxing play there. And unfortunately, that was his downfall, because Daniel Dubois, yes, he went down, but obviously on round one and round three, as we've seen. But other than that, he boxed, I think, every single round, 2 and 4 onwards. He was the winner of the rounds. His boxing ability was highlighted. His boxing basics were on show. The jab was phenomenal. Every time he was single or double jabbing it, he was putting Wardley completely on the back foot. But Wardley was almost too square to Dubois in a lot of places, because he wanted to try and get that right hand on him. And we've seen that you can't do that with someone like Dubois, because you're just opening yourself up to more pain. And as I said in my previous videos, both these fighters are huge hitters, and they're going to do damage if they're going to connect with you. And that's what we've seen from Daniel Dubois, and slightly less in Fabio Wardley's case. Now, obviously, in terms of the fight itself, Dubois was the hands down winner. Wardley, I expected a bit more from him. Like I say, his defence had looked a little sharper with Hooney, and not from so much Hooney, but especially Parker, and he started to sort of build that up. So I expected more variation in defence from Wardley. And it was a little bit disappointing, because I thought he was going to go and win this in terms of pure knockout power. But I cannot take away from Daniel Dubois and what he has done in terms of his boxing ability and what he's shown in terms of heart and grit. And I'm going to jump onto that quickly, because the fight was amazing. Both fighters were incredible, Daniel Dubois more so. Well, what pissed me off more than anything is the second he won that fight, you knew what sort of commentary was going to come out of this. And it was going to be, he ain't a quitter, he's never been a quitter, you know, all you haters can go and piss off, you know, you're all completely wrong. But no one's wrong in that sense, because Daniel Dubois did quit. He quit in the fight against Usyk. It's obvious, that first fight against Usyk, he quit. Now, I don't think that's a bad thing. Like, he gave up. He had enough. He didn't want to be there anymore. Like, all due respect, you're against one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the world. But everyone turns around and goes, no, he didn't quit. He's got heart. No. What he did was he quit. He realised what he'd done. Don Charles and him worked fucking hard to get himself back to a position of winning a world title. And he went through fights with Baby Miller, with Hrgovic in the beginning of the rounds, and then the domination of Joshua to prove what a champion he was. And he came through all of that. So when people turn around to me and they say, oh yeah, you're wrong, he didn't quit and everything, you just hating on him. No, that's not hating, that is criticism. And you're allowed to criticise someone for something they've done. But what I will say is, him quitting that fight against Usyk, personally for me, made him the fighter he is today, made him the two-time heavyweight champion of the world he is today. So do you know what? I actually think it's a good thing that he quit, because he realised he fucked up and he changed it and he became the fighter he is now. So when anyone turns around and says, oh, everyone who told him that he quit and that he gave up and everything are just haters, no, they're right. He did quit. But it made him the fighter he is today. And that's all I'm going to say about it. 'Cause it does my nutting when people turn around and start changing like the history when they've done something 5-6 fights down the line. That's great. But at that moment in time, you did what you did. And that's what's created you to be the person you are now and the fighter you are now. So take it on board. Just admit you gave up. But actually, what I've done since then is show heart and progress in terms of my ability to handle adversity in the ring. And that is what Daniel Dubois has done. And I cannot praise him enough for that, because he looked a different fighter. Again, Usyk too. Different story, really. I think he was just very unprepared for that fight and it just weren't quite working for him. But we have seen a different Daniel Dubois in this fight, a more prepared Daniel Dubois. Someone who, with one voice, with Don Charles in the corner, he and Don Charles can do this and can reign supreme in the world heavyweight division. Like, you know, there's not many fighters that are going to beat Daniel Dubois. We've only seen him lose recently twice to Usyk, who is possibly known as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So, in terms of Fabio Wardley and everything else, let's get into this. In terms of stopping him in the ring, I think the fight should have been stopped about a round earlier. I think round 10, we seen him come out and he sort of stood down and then stumbled back a little bit. And for me, that's when the fight should have been done. The beginning of round 10, when he stumbled back and he just sort of couldn't find himself, the towel should have gone in and saved himself from himself. That isn't him giving up. That isn't criticism in terms of the quiet. That is the part where I said that was it. People who spoke about sort of round 7, 8, it should have been stopped. No, because we know with Wardley, he can drop that one punch and he can take someone out. So no, he needed even more time. I think the beginning of round 10 is when it should have been stopped. Anything after that was just starting to get uncomfortable. But when people say uncomfortable, like, it is a world heavyweight championship fight. Look at the old school fights we've seen and some of the destruction in there. Like, yes, it's not pretty to watch, but that's what you're wanting to watch. You're wanting to see these people punch the shit out of each other. Like, they are going to hurt. And Fabio Wardley was hurt, and yes, it was bad, but I also think, to be fair, his nose, obviously the split and everything, made it look even worse than what it could have been. So, you know, for me personally, the start of round 10, it should have been ended. The corner should have been brave enough to stop it. Wardley should have been safe from himself. I think the referee, again, should have seen that stumble. If he did see that stumble and ignore it, that's bad put form from the referee. The referee didn't see the stumble. He should have been alerted to that, because you cannot come out at the beginning of a round and almost stumble backwards before you go and start taking on again another 250-pound man and try and keep the shit, like, try and knock the shit out of him and him knocking the shit out of you continuously. It doesn't work that way. So, start of round 10 should have been ended. But it was a fantastic fight, and the intrigue, the pure brutality of it is what made it fight of the year so far, and a heavyweight fight that's going to live through the ages. Finally, let's sort of jump into this, where each fight is going to go. In terms of Daniel Dubois, I think it's quite easy. We don't want to see a third Usyk fight. I'm sorry. He will lose to Usyk. There's no point fighting Usyk. Does he fight Atoma? Possibly. I think if it wasn't for Fury Joshua, Fury would have been a good shout, but he's going to be tied up obviously with a couple of fights with Joshua. So for me, the next bout, I think, should be Atoma, because I think Atoma is ready and it's going to be a phenomenal fight between those two. But there is a rematch clause within this fight that we found out after, that Wardley can enact a rematch clause. So obviously moving on to Wardley here, I think, should he fight Dubois again? He's going to fight Dubois again, because let's face it, if that fight comes again, we're all going to watch it. So he's going to make a shit ton of money from it. And he's brave as hell, so he's not going to turn around and say no to it. Do I think he should fight him? Possibly not. I think he should probably go to someone like a Filip Hrgovic. I wouldn't say Ajit Kabayel, but maybe Ajabal or something. Maybe just build a couple more fights, try and get the fundamentals of the defence back again, and then go for the big heavyweights again of Kabayel, Dubois, Usyk onwards. But a rematch clause is in play, and I think it will be something they act on and go forward from there. So let me know your thoughts on this one, guys. Like I say, I've just unpacked quite a lot there. In terms of the fight, congratulations, Daniel Dubois. He did a phenomenal performance, and he proved some doubters wrong in terms of his in-fight heart, in terms of getting up off the canvas and doing what he did. But I say some because people like me and people who have common sense would actually say, all due respect, like, you've learnt this through the adversity you've already come through. And I expected him to show the heart and the courage that he did. I expected both fighters to, and that's why it made it fight of the year. And in terms of moving forward, do we want to see the rematch? Should we get the rematch? And if not, where should each fighter go moving forward? Please do not forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.